Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Having Our Say, Leaving a Legacy of the Black LGBTQ Experience in Atlanta. For over 20 years, the Auburn Avenue Research Library has been actively documenting Black LGBTQ life in Atlanta and has seen a dramatic rise in research. Former Archives manager Carrie Cotton Williams set out to document and preserve the personal papers and records of various groups within the community. All of our panelists this morning have given us records, and they are permanently stored and preserved here at the Auburn Avenue Research Library. My name is Derek Mosley, and I have the honor of serving as the Archives manager. I also have the honor of sharing some important news this morning that affects access to these records. AARL has recently been given a grant which was submitted in 2024 and 2025 in collaboration with the Internet Archive to the Council on Library and Information Resources, and it has been funded. This grant will allow us to digitize a number of our collections that relate to the LGBTQ experience in Atlanta. These collections are the Duncan Teague papers, the Anthony Tony Daniels papers, the A. Dodie Muse collection, the Ada Rentas papers, the In the Life Atlanta records, the Zammy records, the African American Lesbian and Gay Print Culture collection, the Shirlene Holmes papers, and the Craig Washington papers. So as we embark on this journey with these donors, let's celebrate a bright future for access to these collections. I'm joined this morning by three panelists. The first that I will introduce is Mr. Craig Washington, who relocated to Atlanta in 1992. He began freelance writing for the Southern Voice and volunteering with Aid Atlanta as a member of the volunteer African American outreach team. He later worked as the African American outreach coordinator, and he was charged with delivering prevention and awareness to Black communities. In 1993, Craig began attending Second Sunday, a small discussion group for Black gay men. In 1996, he was elected co-chair of Second Sunday. In 1997, at Aid Atlanta, he created the Deeper Love Project, a HIV risk reduction program that featured a workshop series and a monthly forum known as Black Coffee. Craig has had essays, interviews, and reviews published in the Washington Blade, the Southern Voice, the Atlanta Voice, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Arise, Click, Venus, and the City Sun. He is a licensed social worker who specializes in individual and group counseling. Throughout his career, he has served a diverse range of people, including young gay men, LGBTQIA people, Black men and women, elders, non-binary individuals, and individuals in addiction and recovery, and people living with HIV and AIDS. Just give them a hand. Our second panelist is Tracee McDaniel. She is a Atlanta Phoenix Award winner, a Georgia House of Representatives Commendation recipient, a former Atlanta Citizen Review Board chairwoman, a certified peer counselor, an author, and a transhuman civil rights advocate. She is motivated by a strong desire to ensure that all trans, gender nonconforming, and non-binary people receive justice, civil, and human rights protections. She was born and raised in South Carolina. She credits her strength and determination to her family's unconditional love and support throughout her life, which has enabled her to have stepped knee-deep into advocacy. After co-founding the Trans Housing Atlanta program, Tracee also established Juxtaposed Center for Transformation in 2007 to use as a vehicle for spreading the good news about trans, gender non-conforming, and non-binary people, while also celebrating their resilience being here since the beginning of time, existing in every country and on every continent inhabited by mankind. She never apologizes for always putting the T first, believing that human rights are trans rights are human rights, and our visibility saves lives. Let's welcome Tracee. And our last panelist is Reverend Duncan E. Teague. He is the lead minister of the Abundant Love Unitarian Universalist congregation in the West End of Atlanta, which was established in 2018. He has worked for Emory's Rollins School of Public Health in the Global Health Department, assisting with research of faith-based projects during HIV, AIDS, and anti-stigma work. He also is a graduate of the Candler School of Theology at Emory with a Master's of Divinity in 2011. He has received many awards, including a resolution by the Atlanta City Council in 2022, and which was given by Councilwoman Keisha Waits and endorsed by Council President Doug Shipman. In the 2017 session of the State of Georgia House of Representatives, Representative Park Cannon and former Representative Keisha Waits signed House Resolution number 290. And the year 2024, Georgia State Senator Nan Orrock sponsored a proclamation also commending him for his 38 years of HIV, AIDS, and community work. His papers are held here at the library, and he also gifted the collections of Tony Daniels, the A. Doty Muse collection, as well as his own personal papers. He resides in Decatur with his husband, David Thurman, and they are celebrating over 22 years of marriage. Let's welcome Duncan T. So this morning, I'm going to pose a number of questions, and we're going to be able to hear from the perspective of donors, and so we're very excited. So just to set the tone for our discussion, I'd love to hear when you moved to Atlanta and where did you first find community?
I guess I'll start. Well, that's a kind of a two-sided story. I first moved here to Atlanta in '88. I lived here for 2 years before escaping to California to save my life from a crazy relationship. And so in 2003, we decided to move to the East Coast because I wanted to be closer to my mother. After 9/11, I didn't want to have to get on a plane, traveling from California. I wanted to be able to get to my mother when I wanted to get to her, so driving would be easier. So we decided to move back to the East Coast so that I could be closer to my mother, and it's been 25 years, going on 26 years now. And I first found community, I guess I would say I found community at home with my family, my mother at first, teaching me, giving me a foundation, laying a foundation, to be able to move out into community to do the advocacy work that I'm doing. So I'm really appreciative of that. And then just being out in the community, meeting people, knowing people, and working and collaborating with people, that creates community.
Okay. I'll say what motivated me was twofold. One is that, no, I'll just go there first. I took the midnight train to Georgia. It was a relationship. So I'd rather live in his world than to be without him in mine. So I met a man who, at the time we met, when we first started dating, he was already scheduled to relocate to Atlanta. I'm originally from New York, Queens. The other piece of that, what made it a little easier, was that I'd heard some exciting things about Atlanta, particularly if you were young, black, and certainly queer, that there was a visible black gay community here. Finding community, I think one of the first moves that I remember making in terms of actively seeking activist community or engaged community was picking up a copy of Southern Voice and seeing a promo for a black gay poets reading, and that was actually, let me see, That was in '92. And at that reading, I met just Trey Johnson was one of the folks, and just a gorgeous poet, singer, and we befriended. And he actually introduced me to some of the other really actively engaged folks, including the gentleman to my left, ultimately. And the second piece of that was actually being invited to a tribute to Audre Lorde. Maybe about a couple of months after I moved here, Audre Lorde had passed. And there was no one that I knew here in Atlanta that had that kind of connection or knew. I didn't know the folks that knew Audre. Trey introduced me to the folks that actually organized that. And so between those two, I guess, events, it was early on that I thought that I could find home here beyond, my relationship in terms of finding community where I would fit.
So you asked, when did we move to Atlanta? I was very young in 1984. Yeah, 1984. I arrived in Atlanta a week before Labor Day. My cousin had sort of come up with a plan that would have me move here. I didn't know that. I was just out of college. I graduated, and this was supposed to be my gift, 2 weeks in Atlanta. And I'm a little bit of an extrovert, so by the second week I had what I thought was a boyfriend. And I had the option of staying. I don't think this is something you can try now, but he said, we'll turn in your return ticket and get a refund. Don't try that now. Delta will not give you your money back. But back then, you could turn in the ticket and get refunded. And so they said, we'll get your return ticket refunded, and we'll take care of you until you find a job. And I had this other incentive, tall, square-head boy. Anyway, and so I wasn't going nowhere. I didn't have any reason to go back to Kansas City. I had had relationships in Kansas City. I had come out there in high school. But Tracee, in respect to you, and really I honor your story, because for me, family was family and they weren't community. And family included Westminster Baptist Church, where my father was the pastor. And they loved me, and they were a type of community, but they were an extension of family. And that meant I couldn't be all of who I wanted to be there. Everybody knew, but so I am here a week before what is essentially the baby that becomes Black Gay Pride. And I was astounded. I thought all the Black gay men in America had landed here, because I was used to being in Kansas City, where we were a minority of a minority of a minority. And in fairness to my story also, I have to say that those men were wonderful to me, and whatever was stirring inside of me, that family core wasn't enough. And as a young adult trying to establish yourself, stuff happens. And I moved away from my cousin's circle, his community. And I saw an ad for a rap session for Black and white men together Atlanta. And I arrived on that Monday night to that rap session a week before my birthday, and it changed my life. It was, at that point, BWMT Atlanta had more than 100 members. And the rap sessions would be about 20, 30 guys in somebody's home talking. And I discovered community. And out of that are all sorts of strands in my life that became careers, lovers, friends, people who helped me become what you see. And they also sadly became some of the first people I lost to HIV. Because in '84, in the summer of '84, HIV was probably here in Atlanta, but it wasn't prominent, and it wasn't a part of our discussion. We were 2 years behind San Francisco. So in the next 2 years, the whole discussion was HIV. And that changed my life.
Thank you all. My next question is, have you ever considered leaving Atlanta and why?
Okay, I'll answer much faster. Atlanta won't let you go. She didn't let me go. And I had plans, I had husbands, I had all sorts of things trying to get out of here. And it never worked. Never worked. When I became a minister as a Unitarian Universalist, typical ministers in our movement travel like to 3 or 4 churches all across the country establishing themselves. Similar to Methodists, who must go away from home to become established. And my calling was to start a new congregation here. I didn't even get to move for that. I went to New York, and I think it's a cute little town, for a month-long internship with the gay men's health crisis because of the work I was doing. And I even, of course, fell in love. And he was wonderful. It didn't work. And when he saw my life here, he was like, there's no way you can have that life in New York. And you can't move to my apartment and get it established. I thought, what are you talking about? And the next year I was Grand Marshal of Gay Pride. So he knew something was going on. I went out to the West Coast for a boot camp on becoming a gay activist. I stayed in San Francisco for a month. It was for young people. And it was wonderful. And I thought, I'm going home. These people are crazy out here. So I've tried. She got something going on here.
Moving from Atlanta, that would be hard. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen. I will say, similar to Duncan and Tracee, that I found in many ways my purpose here. Mm-hmm. There's a way in which early on the community embraced me. Both the community at large, and I would say particularly the community of artists, activists, historians, embraced me and supported my involvement and ultimately my leadership. So that's a lot. I've gotten a lot here, as well as just family. My friends, and this is certainly a common, if not universal, queer experience, that my chosen family or friends, non-biological kin, are family, are just as close to me as my core kin, blood kin. So yeah, that would be difficult. I'd have to weigh on that. But at the same time, I'm not pressed to really even consider that. Atlanta still works for me. I think that there's and I would say at my age, there's a lot that I want to do. There's a lot of work for me and a lot of living here, and Atlanta works to do that. I'm actually engaging in a very intentional and specific way an initiative to collect and preserve and educate about local Atlanta Black queer history. All right, so I love Atlanta. And it was a struggle moving here. I was a typical New York Yankee chauvinist, like, you know, looking down, y'all ain't got enough sidewalks, and y'all close at 10 o'clock. And I listened to myself, and I listened to that voice and the complaints, and it didn't sound good. Sometimes you have to check yourself. And I recognized that, you know, Atlanta didn't force me to move here. I moved here. It was my choice. And it led me to release New York, and well, I always claim her. That's, you know, my hometown. But I'm no longer there, all right? And so it helped me to appreciate Atlanta, and I love it.
Well, when I first left Atlanta back in the day, I was forced to do so because I was trying to save my life. And during that time, I was considering moving to other places. I was, you know, contemplating how far enough away that I needed to get away from this crazy man. And so during that time, I considered Paris, France. I figured I'd just have to move to another country. And then I decided to move to California because it was close enough, once again, to get to my mama. So yeah, California, lived there for 12 years. I met a man, got married, going on 30-something years now, and moved back to Atlanta. Atlanta is home now, and I love Atlanta. And if I ever move somewhere, it will be closer to a beach. That would be the only consideration.
I want to give a little bit of a time capsule. When I moved, like I said, there was a moment when me and my cousin sort of had to separate. And so I moved from North Avenue Northwest to North Avenue Northeast on Linwood and North Avenue. And it was me and another young gay man. And this is back in 1985, right? We had an apartment with 2 bedrooms, a living room, a kitchen, a den, and a patio. And it was less than $700 a month. And so 2 struggling queens could establish a home, and out of that home came the second meeting of the African American Lesbian Gay Alliance was in that same apartment. So there is something about where Atlanta used to be economically that and the brochure about Atlanta was everywhere. You know, if you black and you come to Atlanta, you can make it, you know. And so the idea of leaving was, you know, you just got here. And it was economical. And there was stuff going on. Now, there was only 1 or 2 things going on, and we all would show up at those 1 or 2 things back then. Now there's 20 things going on. And my husband says I can't go to all of them. But anyway, yeah. I just want to give that, because I don't think 2 queens could find the same kind of apartment on brand new careers and make it now without 2 more queens moving in with them. And that changes the dynamic of what it means to establish yourself here.
What event in your life influenced or prompted you to consider leaving documents and collections of your life for future generations?
Okay, y'all thinking?
I think it's.
I know mine. You ready?
No, yes, I'm ready. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for your concern. So
You know I know you
I
need
think,
a
and I've got the moment, and I've taken my moment. Thank you so much. So it was the inner voice. People that knew me and knew my level of involvement, and as much history as I'd either been blessed to witness or been a part of, you know, whether that was working at 8 Atlanta, and thus as the African American Outreach Coordinator, working with a team of intergenerational folks of varied gender and sexual orientation coming together in the early 90s to educate communities, to becoming a part of Second Sunday, which was a very active, very popular Black gay men's. It started as a discussion group and it morphed into a support organization, which in and of itself was a part of history. And just other, I guess, facets of my work and my involvement. And I'm a pack rat, so I collected all kinds of ephemera and posters and flyers when I would go to conferences like the Black Lesbian Gay Leadership Forum, which is no longer. An amazing conference, nothing like it before or since. You know, there would be vendors that had Black gay media and other products that were just shared from across the country, and I'd bring them home. So there'd be What's Up magazine from Detroit, or BLK, right? Or Booty Box, the infamous Booty Box. And so I had that in my basement. There was, who's the archivist? Wesley and Carrie, who urged me, Craig, you've got to donate. I said, it's a great idea. I'm going to get around to it. I know, I hear you. And then years would pass. I had some materials in a basement where I was living at the time. And there was a flood. The basement flooded. And some of my materials were damaged. And that really was, it would take another year or two. No, actually, 3. But that was clearly a sign, okay, you've got to do something. And then, of course, my friend Duncan established his collection here. There were other collections here at Auburn Research Library. Venus, the magazine, is archived here, as well as the Tony Daniels collection. So I'm like, okay, this is the time. Do it. Make it happen. So contacted Derek, and Derek, you were wonderful in terms of helping me to really move forward with that decision. I think that the other piece is that my collection is not only reflected of my life and my work, it's broader, and it has meaning, and the materials are far too valuable for me to have. They're not safe, and so they need to be someplace that is safe and someplace that is accessible, and that's my way of walking the talk, right? If I think that these materials in our history, and my collection is very, very Black and very queer, then I need to treat it as such. So thank you for facilitating that.
Okay, mine was real easy because Tony passed away in '98, and Malik got the message to go get Tony's stuff. Malik, Tony, and I were the original members of Adodi Muse, a gay Negro ensemble. And Tony wrote most of the stuff that we performed up until that time. Malik went and got Tony's stuff. And then Tony's sister pulled up as Malik was leaving the house to come and get Tony's things, his straight sister. What would have happened to Tony's stuff? Okay, now Malik dropped it off at my house because he moved away. So then I had Tony's stuff, my stuff, and a lot of stuff from Adodi Muse. And I have very good friends. Dr. Roderick Ferguson comes through Atlanta. He's from Georgia. He's sociologist? Yeah, esteemed academic and a vicious queen. But anyway, I take him to my office, and I show him all this stuff, and he says, Duncan, you have got to get this stuff out of here. One fire in your home will take out all this history. And I'm like, really? I think at that time, Joan Garner was still with us, and I knew that she had helped establish the collections here. And actually, it helped build Auburn Avenue Research Library, if I'm not mistaken. I know she was on the inaugural thing around here. So I, because of the look on Roderick's face, I thought, okay, I guess I do. And this is for those of you who work in collections, who work in libraries or whatever. The selling point from Wesley and from Carrie Cotton Williams was how simple it was. And I set them up, you know, I put them in an air-conditioned place, and I had a few boxes, 30-something. And they spent the summer going through the things, and we just kept them full of iced tea, and they had a place to sort, and it was just so easy. So promote the ease of it, and remind folks that they don't have to do the editing. Y'all will do the editing. Just get the dirty box, get the bugs out, and you know, and set it on the table, or tell them where it is. I know y'all don't like being in basements and attics and stuff.
We don't mind crawl space.
But y'all don't mind. Well, bless your heart. I ain't going. But the ease of it and the look on Roger's face, and I have never forgotten that look. And Tracee, I want to give you points, because here we are this weekend at Transgender Awareness Week, Transgender Day of Remembrance, and I want to lift up Edna Mae Brown. Edna was fabulous to me and changed our organizing at the African American Lesbian Gay Alliance. I can't find a photo of Edna. And
That's why we need to do this.
and we have to, yeah.
Preserve our history.
Why can't I find a photo of Edna? She was co-chair of that same conference when it came here to Atlanta.
The Black Gay and Lesbian Leadership Forum.
And notice, Black Gay and Lesbian Leadership Forum, African American Lesbian and Gay Alliance. The word trans isn't in there, but Edna was there. She deserves at least a photo somewhere. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Would you be kind enough to repeat the question, please?
What event in your life influenced or prompted you to consider leaving documents and records for future generations?
Well, I guess it started innately. I always knew that it's important for us to tell our stories in our own words, which is why in 2013 I wrote my first book, Transitions, Memoirs of a Transsexual Woman, because I wanted to leave a history that could not be misconstrued, because we've seen all the Jerry Springer stereotypes and stuff. And what made me get really serious about donating my papers was when I first met Morna Gerard. She's the archivist at Georgia State University. We were board members on the TLGBTQ Institute programming directors. And so we had a conversation, and she talked. I kind of resisted doing it for a while. And then after we got to know each other and we built trust between each other, then I started to donate stuff to Georgia State University's archives, which is great. And I've also donated some papers to Georgia State, which is very important to leave a record for the next generation, because the generation before us, the Compton riots, Stonewall riots, we saw what happened with them. We saw how they persevered. We saw their resilience. And so I wanted to leave the record for the next generation to see that we've learned a lesson from the generation before, and we want to leave a record for you to follow. So, yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question before I open it up to our audience for questions. Is there anything that you donated that you can consider keeping and not allowing access to it?
I guess I can go first. Everything that I donated, I wanted to get rid of. I wanted to get rid of as much stuff as possible. Like Craig, I'm a pack rat. I have posters in trunks from my childhood bedroom that were on my wall. During my performance artist destiny years on stage, I have posters from my dressing room. You know how you decorate your dressing room and your mirror. So I just packed a lot of stuff away, and I knew that it was important. And what I really knew that it was important for me to do this is when I was appointed to the Atlanta Citizen Review Board in 2016 by former Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed. I knew that all eyes were on me, being the first trans person to serve on that police oversight board. I knew that I had to go in there. I knew I had to be prepared. I had to study. I had to know what I'm talking about because people were watching me. First transgender person here, they're gonna, but my record speaks for itself as far as what I did the 6 years that I served on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board. And my upcoming book, Sumter Girl, My Journey Remaining Sane After Becoming the First Trans Person Appointed to Serve on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board, tells that story of those 6 years, and it also tells some behind the scenes stuff that, you know, no one is aware of. You know, that, I mean, it's crazy the stuff that I had to go through. And sometimes it felt like I didn't have a mentor, someone that I could go and talk to about these things because, you know, I had no idea that I was stepping into politics when I was asked to be considered for that position. And so I think it's very important for people to see that just because you have an opinion about trans people, what you think we're able to do, our actions speak differently. So that's why I wanted to leave a record.
Give me the question.
Is there anything that you you donated that you consider
there's a box
keeping?
at home. Y'all ain't getting until I'm gone. And by the way, if you're a collector, they don't have to open that box till the date on the box. And you set the date. If you're someone who is managing collections, remind folks of that we won't open this box out of respect for you until you say. We're just now getting some news of some people who died 50, 60 years ago because their collections were sealed until. And that's a legal relationship. They cannot open that box until. It'll be interesting when some of the truth about the Kennedys and the whatever come out. Because it's been long enough that all those crooks are dead. Shut up, Duncan. Anyway, did I give you anything that I know? Because I know my husband ain't going through the collection. Yeah. Everything I gave, I'm all right with. And I literally do have some boxes at home, and I'm determining what date they will be open. And I think I'm going to put on there a week after my memorial. And Tracee will be sitting there waiting for the box to get open. It's a week, y'all. Open the box.
I'll say that everything that I donated, I've freely donated. I've released. I will say it was difficult, particularly the Second Sunday flyers, because Second Sunday is an organization that I actually co-led along with Ulester Douglas, was among maybe the top 2 or 3 career initiatives, involvements that are dearest to my heart. It was a group that when it started, my first encounter with that group, I was at my friend Lance McCready's home, And he asked me it was a Sunday afternoon, and he asked me what I was doing, and I said it was free, and he mentioned the second Sunday meeting, and I said, well, what's second Sunday? It was the second Sunday of the month. And he convinced me to stay because it was at his home, and that's I want you to hold that. That was at his home, which was actually a dorm apartment at Emory University. So the 6 to 8 guys that showed up held the discussion, and it was about HIV disclosure. It was the first time where I disclosed my HIV status, and then at that point I've been living with HIV for about 8 years, to people that I didn't know. Because I felt the acceptance, I felt the love. I knew 2 folks there, but there were maybe 5 or 6 who I didn't. But these brothers, spirit. It grew from meeting in members' homes to, and I remember there's a point where the living room was full. And so if you had a second Sunday meeting, you could no longer stay in the living room because that's packed. So you're in maybe someone's dining room, craning to see the speaker, the facilitator, to meeting at the Virginia Highlands Baptist Church. We outgrew that. And then eventually relocated to City Hall East. There was an auditorium there. And so the power of black men coming together to the point where 150, 200 black queer men showing up on the second Sunday of each month cannot be, it's hard to imagine. And so those flyers, I guess, those were sort of the most illustrative artifacts for me in terms of what we did. I will say that I'm contemplating, and I'm going to show you what I'm contemplating releasing. And if so, then I'll probably need to use that condition or that date. It is an autographed copy of Joseph Beam's anthology, In the Life. And Joseph and I met over the phone. I actually was scheduled to come to Philadelphia and meet him there. By the time that I got there, he was ill, and he passed away not too long after. So I just want to read for Craig, via Cynthia, that was our mutual friend. The legacy we leave are the deeds that we do. Joseph Beam. September 13th, 1987. And then there's another, Brother to Brother. This is the book that Joseph started. And his good friend, Brother Essex Hemphill, helped complete. And this is autographed to Craig. His standard salutation, take care of your blessings, Essex Hemphill. That's August 4th, 1994. And these 2 items are obviously very dear to my heart. Joseph Beam, I walk with Joseph Beam and Essex Hemphill, and the work that I do is inspired, is paved that path for me and my peers and contemporaries by those 2. And yet I think of the same thing. What if a fire is in my home? Much as I love these, am I being responsible for keeping them? I'm not ready to turn it loose, but I'm letting you know, just this is an example of what the struggle. And so I guess, for those of you who are thinking about donating, of course you want to honor your own connection to that item. And at some point that might change. So be open. But when spirit moves, because there's a point where I'm sure I'll get that word that it's time to let go. Thank you so much. Spirit ain't told me that, but thank you.
May I just add, when in 2016, when I was appointed to Atlanta Citizen Review Board, I was initially approached by Emory University to donate to their archives. It took me a while to process that, and then when I came to your event here at the papers, for your papers, the light bulb just started flashing. I've already donated to Georgia State University. I'd rather donate it to the Auburn Avenue Research Library because it's a Black institution. So I was really happy that I was able to attend that, and that I had no other questions about where I was going to donate to next. So
Something hit me on my way here, and it's about my social location now. I certainly wanted a Doty Muse because I know we change lives. The now 5 of us that have done poetry as a Doty Muse. And as I was driving here, I thought, what's the deal about this collection thing? And by the way, I'm not a pack rat, I am a collector.
okay.
And what I realized was, because now I'm a minister, and when I ask you to hand over your stuff, there's some presumptions being made. One of the presumptions is that you value your life enough to hold on to stuff that identifies who you really are. And that you want the stuff to tell other folks who you really are. And so this collecting thing is big. Because we're saying you must love yourself enough to put yourself in history. Now you might have observed that. I don't have no problem with that. Now, I just wanted to say that, because it's not just collecting your stuff, it's putting, you value who you are and that your life meant something.
So we have time for one question from the audience. Is there any questions in the audience?
Okay.
We have 5 minutes, so maybe 2. I'll start right here, sir.
First of all, thank you so much for so eloquently sharing your story with us this morning. What advice would you, let's change that word, what guidance would you perhaps give the younger, up-and-coming generation, or should I say children, about establishing and showing up for community, health, wellness, advocacy? I think that by evidence of your testimony this morning, you've laid the bricks that many of them stand on. So, you know, their struggle is not your struggle, or your fight is certainly not their fight. And many of them perhaps don't even think they have a fight or a reason to fight. And to get out here in these spaces and these streets and even these suites that we have to go to. So what guidance would you provide?
I think it's incumbent upon us, I'll speak for myself, as an elder, to come from a place of appreciation and respect when I engage younger folks. To resist the presumption that because I may not be aware of their level of involvement or what they're doing, that they're not doing anything, or because what they're doing doesn't look like what my generation did or is doing, and that it is less valid. It is important, it is incumbent upon us to approach younger people seeking not only to impart wisdom so that you're setting it up so that it's a one direction, a unidirectional exchange. I'm pouring into this young empty vessel, as opposed to being positioning and preparing to learn and listen. And that's full engagement. To that end, one, I guess, piece of encouragement would be to seek it. Seek like-minded. Don't, it's not about operating in isolation. Be clear in terms of your incentive and your motive, what's driving you. Follow your passion and seek people that share your vision broadly.
I guess the only thing that comes to mind for me is that at this age, I don't have to go to a younger event. And there are those things that are geared for younger people. And so that might mean I gotta work a little harder to get there. But I think that it's like my ministry, it's gotta be relational. And then out of that authentic relationship, a discussion about how I would like to see their history preserved, or her story, or our story, can come out. And that means that I might have to be a little uncomfortable at a ball at 1 or 2, which means at 1 or 2 that afternoon I took a nap. Yeah, that's.
Last question.
And mine is really similar, because this is like a part B. Literally, that was my exact question that I had written down. So first, thank you, because this is phenomenal. I think it is right now important, the intergenerational piece of this. And for what it's worth, like, I know I look young, I am still, but it's like I'm the
Claim it, honey, because I do.
and I mean it, but seriously, it's like, think about where we are in time. Like,
Yes.
it's more question and comment, because to flip it, what's your, advice for the younger generation? I'm a millennial. I'm the older millennial right now, and I'm still, working with the young people. So for you all, what will it take for you as the seniors, the legacy, to be ready and willing? What are those things that are going to motivate you all to start to give back, to mentoring, whether it's what's the key for you all now to give back? That's my question. Because that was advice to the younger generation, but what is it going to take for you all? Because you're not old enough. You're not too old to still continue doing this work, but we need that. I'm the intermediary between that next generation, if that makes sense. So that's my question is, what is the motivation for your generation to now give back?
Reach back. Each one teach one. Reverend Archbishop Carl Bean, attending his church in Los Angeles. Each one teach one. We have to reach back and pull people up and encourage people. But the thing is that not everybody is willing or able to do this work. So if you want to do the work, we don't mind mentoring and giving guidance. It's up to that person to do it, though. What is their motivation for doing it, and why are they doing it? So, but yeah, I mentor people all the time. Sometimes it's challenging, because people can get crazy at some points. But still, for those who are serious about it, then yeah, I don't mind sharing my knowledge and understanding of what's been happening.
In my ministry, it's actually an obligation. I don't have a choice. I have to mentor, and I wasn't always a minister, or I was always a minister, but in complete denial. So this is like a third career for me as a minister. But, and I had to stomach a woman who I really admire as my mentor saying out loud that she was observing me becoming an elder. And I was like, really? I thought, oh God, it's time for me to dye my hair again.
It's my role as a mentor, and I've had young people claim me as everything from mentor to pawpaw, to just in terms of just these wonderful, endearing honorifics. As a therapist, I have quite a few younger Black queer men, and and that's a professional relationship, but there is a mentoring aspect to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that there is something about my placement in terms of age, as well as just how I show up as Black and queer, that drew them to me. And I think I'm fulfilling some of that there. But there's work for me to do in terms of reflection. I think there's more that I could do in terms of ensuring that intergenerational exchange. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm working with folks like the folks that are on either side of me to help develop that. So that's in process.
Well, thank you all for coming out this morning, and we want to thank you all thank our panelists, so please give them a hand. Thank you all. And in the lobby, we have Ms. Tracee McDaniel has a table right outside with a number of her books and products, so please do visit by